Sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse.
Jim Carrey, I believe, last night at the Caesar Awards in France, making his big debut back into the spotlight. I'm going to play it for you in a second, but I put, who is this? Because it is definitely not Jim Carrey. The eyes aren't even the same color.
But here's what nobody is connecting. Two men who never should have been in the same sentence just pointed at the same machine. One has been screaming about it from comedy stages for years. The other is the last clean movie star Hollywood doesn't know how to destroy. And the man they're both circling, he's either gone silent because he found God, or because someone made sure he had no other choice. Before we get to what happened to Jim Carrey, we have to understand why Jim Carrey became a problem. He was never supposed to be the guy who turned the mirror around. He was the guy they handed $100 million and said, make people laugh, make them forget, make them happy and docile. He was perfect, beloved, safe. And then one night, at the most prestigious event in the entertainment calendar, something in him snapped.
Sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse. And it really felt like, oh, this is a really clear indication that we're not the cool club anymore.
This wasn't a social media rant. This wasn't a carefully managed PR moment. This was Jim Carrey, sitting across from Gayle King on national television, calling his own industry cowardly, without flinching, without a publicist-approved hedge. He said what every other person in that room was thinking, and would never, ever say out loud. And he didn't stop there, because a few weeks before the Oscars moment, Jim had already been on Jimmy Kimmel's stage doing something that nobody in late-night television is supposed to do, pointing directly at the curtain.
Is that a gang sign? Have you,
Oh, like you don't know what it is. You don't know what that is.
I have no idea.
You don't know. Jimmy Fallon doesn't know. David Letterman doesn't know.
We don't know.
All the comics and show business don't know what this is. Right? Yeah.
What is it?
Come on, Jimmy. Seriously, the time is up. People are hip to this kind of stuff. I'm here tonight to blow the lid off it, to be the whistleblower. I'm sick and tired of the secrets and the lies.
You can call that a joke. Kimmel certainly wanted you to. The audience laughed. But watch the room. Watch the way the energy shifts the second Jim stops performing and starts pointing. That's not a comedian doing a bit. That's a man using a comedy show as cover to say something he can't say anywhere else. Because here's the context nobody puts together. Late-night television exists for one purpose. Celebrities come in, sell their project, laugh at scripted questions, and go home. Everyone stays on script. Everyone plays their role. Jim Carrey walked onto that stage and used his promo slot to tell millions of viewers that the hosts they trust are there to distract them. That's not eccentric. That is dangerous, and Hollywood noticed. Now, here's where this story gets layered, because Jim Carrey wasn't the only one drawing these lines. He was just the loudest, and years before the mainstream caught up, another man had been building the same case methodically, punchline by punchline, with receipts. Katt Williams. The last time people laughed at Katt Williams, he was on stage naming Diddy, calling out what he described as ritualistic freak-off parties, warning that Diddy was going to pay a price for the things everyone in the industry pretended not to see. A year later, the federal raids hit. The freak-offs ended up in legal documents, and suddenly, the comedian everyone called crazy didn't sound crazy at all. So when Katt turns his attention to the mechanics of this industry, the way nothing is accidental, the way downfalls are engineered, the way the machine can monetize a man even after he's gone, people aren't laughing anymore. They're listening.
In business, nothing is coincidental, or you would be hearing who's losing money. In all of these situations, it's only the artist that's losing. Somebody makes big money. When these rappers get killed, not incidental. Somebody made $100 million and now don't have to talk to that artist or none of their crew.
Sit with that. Katt isn't talking about metaphors. He's describing a specific financial model where the death or disappearance of a valuable artist generates more revenue than their continued, difficult, demanding, contract negotiating existence. He's describing Michael Jackson's catalog exploding after years of legal battles with Sony over ownership. He's describing Prince writing the word slave on his face over contract disputes, then dying while his masters regained control of everything he'd fought for. He's describing Whitney Houston becoming a never-ending product line the moment she was no longer around to say no. And then Katt drops the line that connects directly to what allegedly happened to Jim Carrey.
I'm saying that everything that happens in a business that's based off of pretend, that seems like a setup, is.
Everything that happens in a business, everything that happens in a business that's based off of pretend, that seems like a setup, is.
Yes. What I'm saying is, if Jussie Smollett and Lee Daniels for a living make stories that are not real, and they make them so good that people believe them and buy them, and that's what business they're in, why would you think it would be weird if they flipped out and said a story that turned out to not be true?
Why? Why would we think that if they are capable of doing that for a living?
That's what they do for a living. They do that 300 episodes. Is take something fictitious and make it seem real. That's the business.
In an industry built entirely on the art of making people believe things that aren't real, why would you ever assume the stories they tell about their own stars are true? The scandals, the meltdowns, the difficult label, the suspicious tragedies, all of it runs through the same machine that fabricated 300 episodes of someone else's fictional reality. That is not speculation. That is Katt Williams reading the job description. But before we get to what allegedly happened to Jim, there's one more piece you need, because Katt Williams tells you what the machine does. Mel Gibson tells you what the machine makes you agree to before it does it.
Somebody once said my problem was I didn't understand the social contract. Yeah, I now understand what that means.
Yeah.
Do you understand it?
The social contract?
Yeah.
I think I do.
Yeah. What is it for you?
The social contract. You can't get mad.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get mad. You can't let it get you, because you have to make a deal with everyone else, and it's almost unspoken that you are going to be over at some point by people who you may have done something nice for.
Mm.
And it may happen that by circumstance, or even very purposefully, that you someone over. But that shouldn't get in the way of you being able to sit down and have fun with them.
And then Mel goes further.
I've sat there, and I have felt the knife slipped firmly in between my shoulder blades and tried to have it shoved through the other side through my heart. And I've actually felt the whole thing, and I've gone, ah! Wait till next week, you know? Or I'll think, and you'll resent it for a little while, then you have to let it go. Otherwise, you'll eat yourself alive.
The contract is simple. You will be used, you will be betrayed. You will feel the knife go in, and you will smile at the person holding it, because that is the price of the light staying on. Every star who has ever spent a decade in this town has felt that knife. Most of them learned to pretend they didn't. Jim Carrey was the one who went on television and described the handle. Dave Chappelle saw it on a smaller, uglier scale, when he was pressured to put on a dress for a film scene multiple times, by multiple producers, escalating through the chain of command, and he refused. A replacement scene appeared in 10 minutes. Chappelle's point wasn't about a costume. His point was that the humiliation was preloaded. It was waiting. And the minute he pushed back, the system simply activated Plan B to make him look like the difficult one. That is the social contract in action. You don't get to refuse. And if you do, the machine already has the story written. Jim Carrey tore up every version of that contract, publicly, repeatedly, on the biggest stages they gave him. He called the crowd spineless at the Oscars. He mocked Illuminati symbols on Kimmel. He walked up to a fashion event microphone and told the journalist interviewing him that none of it meant anything, that icons were the lowest possible aspiration, that personalities were illusions, that he didn't even believe he existed.
There is no Illuminati. It's just a joke. It's just something that crazy people talk about. There's no such thing as our side and God's side.
I have enough. I've done enough. I am enough.
I have enough. I've done enough. I am enough. 3 sentences. No comeback tour tease. No, I'll return for the right project. just a flat refusal to keep feeding the machine that made him rich and, by his own account, hollowed him out in the process. And then he said the words that made every parent in America slightly uncomfortable.
Telling your kids, don't come to Hollywood. I'm serious.
Your camera's there.
Jim, what about for you? I mean, you had it, on such a grand scale. All of a sudden, you were the biggest movie star in the world, and your paychecks and all of it were public. And I imagine getting out of a car, it was being swarmed with.
And every Hollywood executive deeply uncomfortable. You don't say that if you're just an eccentric actor having a spiritual awakening. You say that if you've seen something specific, something that convinced you the myth isn't just hollow, it's actively dangerous. And the industry, which had tolerated Jim's weirdness for years, had a decision to make. Now, here is where the story shifts completely, because every piece of this narrative up to this point has Jim Carrey standing alone, loud, chaotic, increasingly untethered from the Hollywood game. And in a town that loves to quietly distance itself from difficult people, there is one move that changes the calculus entirely. Keanu Reeves publicly refusing to distance himself. At a press event for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the exact moment Jim is being labeled unhinged by the industry, Keanu goes on camera and does the opposite of what everyone expects him to do.
Keanu Reeves must be one of the nicest, coolest people on the planet, because no one has a bad word to say about that guy, ever. He might be what we should all aspire to be. We should all aspire to be.
And Keanu returns it.
He's film, he's even more genius. He's double genius. Because he's playing two roles, so he's like double genius.
Understand what it means for Keanu Reeves specifically to do this. This is not a random celebrity cosign. Keanu has quietly built a reputation as the single A-lister in Hollywood that nobody can manufacture a scandal around. He gives away millions in bonuses to stunt crews, takes pay cuts so productions stay solvent, rides the subway alone, walks red carpets without an entourage. In a world full of Diddy freak-off allegations, Oprah school scandals, and Harvey Weinstein enabled by the people who were supposed to be the moral compass of the culture, Keanu Reeves remains the one name nobody can weaponize. So when that man, the cleanest star in the building, publicly refuses to treat Jim Carrey like a liability, it sends a signal the industry cannot dismiss. You don't cancel both of them. You don't have a play for both of them simultaneously. And if the rumors circulating inside Hollywood circles carry any weight at all that Keanu allegedly sent a private message to leave Jim alone, that he told the industry Jim was being intimidated for what he knew, that he reached out to Jim directly not to silence him, but to warn him how the machine responds, then what you're looking at isn't just a friendship. It's a quiet alliance between the loud one and the untouchable one. One exposes the machine with jokes about Illuminati symbols and spineless award shows. The other backs him with credibility, reputation, and the one currency Hollywood cannot manufacture, genuine public love. Now we arrive at the part of this story that Katt Williams' framework makes almost impossible to dismiss. Jim Carrey announces his retirement, says he has enough, says he'll only return if angels bring a script written in gold. And then, after years of silence, he reappears. Not in Hollywood, in France. At the César Awards, honorary recognition, standing ovation, the whole room on its feet. And the internet immediately asks one question. Is that actually Jim Carrey?
Jim Carrey, I believe last night at the César Awards in France, making his big debut back into the spotlight. I'm going to play it for you in a second, but I put, who is this? Because it is definitely not Jim Carrey. The eyes aren't even the same color. They don't even care anymore.
Comparisons flood social media within hours. Side-by-side edits, eye color analysis, facial structure breakdowns. In old footage, his eyes are dark brown, almost black, in certain lighting. In the French close-ups, fans are swearing they see hazel, greenish, something different in the gaze. The rubber-faced energy, the thing that made Jim Carrey impossible to imitate, is dialed all the way down. The jaw is set in a polite, contained smile that never moves the way his smiles used to move. The voice is softer, shallower. The unpredictability, the thing that made every interview with Jim Carrey feel like you were watching someone who might do anything at any second, is simply gone. And here is where Katt Williams' logic becomes the most unsettling lens you can apply to this. If nothing in this business is accidental, if downfalls are engineered, If the machine can separate a man from his money and keep the brand running without the person, then what do you do with a star who has seen through every fake accomplishment, is obsessed with ego death and leaving the game, has a suspicious tragedy in his past that could be activated at any moment as legal leverage, and will not stop telling millions of people that the entire industry is hollow? You keep the brand. You let the man behind it fade. Whether that looks like a body double, a version of him under strict and silent control, or simply a man who signed a deal in a back room that he can never, ever talk about. The product, called Jim Carrey, stays on the shelf. The revenue keeps flowing. And the real Jim, the one who warned your kids, mocked their symbols, called their industry spineless, and stood next to Keanu Reeves while doing it, quietly disappears. Jim himself gave them the language to do it cleanly. He said it on camera.
Don't get me wrong, Jim Carrey is a great character, and I was lucky to get the part. But I don't think of that as me anymore.
You don't? Not at all?
Not really, no. I used to be a guy who was experiencing the world, and now I feel like the world and the universe experiencing a God.
So here is what this entire story adds up to the thing Keanu Reeves and Katt Williams are both pointing at without ever standing in the same room. Katt Williams has been right about this industry every single time he opened his mouth. He was right about Diddy before the raids. He was right about the economics of artist elimination before the lawsuits. He is right about the fact that nothing, not the slap, not the standing ovation, not the perfectly timed scandal, not the suspicious disappearance of a star who knew too much, is accidental. Keanu Reeves doesn't need to say any of this out loud. He communicates it through what he refuses to do. He refuses to join Oprah's world, the same Oprah whose South African school was rocked by repeated abuse scandals, whose warm friendship with Harvey Weinstein predated the era when everyone pretended not to know. He refuses to distance himself from Jim Carrey when the industry signals that Jim has become radioactive. He shows up, calls Jim a genius, stands next to him in public, and if the rumors are half accurate, sends a message behind closed doors. Leave him alone. That is not the behavior of a man who thinks Jim is just eccentric. That is the behavior of a man who knows exactly what Jim saw and is making sure the machine understands there are two of them now. You don't cancel the loudest man in the room and the most beloved man in the room at the same time. There is no playbook for that, and that leaves you with the question this whole story has been building toward. They tried to make Keanu look like just the nice guy. They made Katt Williams a punchline for a decade before the receipts proved him right. But once you put it all together, the spineless rant, the Illuminati symbols, the warning to your kids, the France appearance, the changed eyes, the motive, the money, and two very different men refusing to look away, the pattern stops looking like coincidence and starts looking like a cover, looking like